The real enemy that we have is not Iran, which is an enemy. It's not Hezbollah, which is an enemy. It's not Hamas, which is an enemy.
These aren't just words of frustration or a passing comment. They're the words of Ehud Olmert, former Prime Minister of Israel, a leader who has seen the inner workings of Israeli politics, security, and policy. And he's sending a strong message to the world, not just about Israel's external threats, but about the threat he sees growing within his own nation. Olmert's statement is bold, especially coming from a figure with his background and influence. He acknowledges Israel's ongoing tensions with Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas, groups that are often painted as Israel's main threats. But in Olmert's eyes, there's an even greater danger, not from the outside, but from within Israeli society itself.
The messianic, crazy, extreme groups of Israelis that think that they can kick out the Palestinians and annex their territories.
He's warning about a faction within Israel, a faction driven by extreme messianic views that seeks to take over Palestinian territories completely, to drive out Palestinian communities, and to annex land, claiming it as part of a divine right. This, Olmert argues, is Israel's true enemy, one that could dismantle any chance for peace and lead the country toward a path of extremism and division. He describes these groups as crazy and extreme, saying they're pushing Israel in a direction that he, a former prime minister, cannot support. It's rare to hear such direct criticism from a leader of his stature, but his words carry the weight of experience and a deep understanding of what's really at stake. For Olmert, the actions of these ultra-nationalist and religious extremist groups are not only morally wrong but also dangerous to Israel's future. They reject the possibility of peace, ignore international law, and see no place for Palestinians in the land they consider entirely theirs. And Olmert believes that the current Israeli government, led by Prime Minister Netanyahu, is complicit. He accuses Netanyahu of turning a blind eye, even allowing these factions to push forward their agenda because he relies on them for political support. Olmert says that this dependence has created an incompetent and unstable government, one that's sacrificing principles for power. But Olmert's words aren't just a warning for Israelis. They're a wake-up call for the world. When a former prime minister stands up and says, "This is intolerable and unacceptable," we have to ask ourselves, what kind of future is being built here? What kind of legacy is being left for future generations? Olmert's critique highlights something we must all pay attention to. The path forward is not one of occupation, exclusion, and expansion. For the sake of justice and humanity, it has to be a path that respects the rights of Palestinian people, that values peace over control, and that understands the cost of turning one's back on such fundamental values. This message may be hard to hear for some, but the truth is undeniable. When even a former Israeli leader is sounding the alarm, we must realize which side is rooted in justice, in rights, and in respect for humanity. As Olmert himself has shown, standing up for what's right sometimes means facing the uncomfortable truth within your own borders. And that truth, as he's said, is that Israel's greatest challenge may not be from those labeled as enemies on the outside, but from forces within that threaten to destabilize any hope for a peaceful and just future.